I'm Kate Cohen-Posey, and I'm at Peace River Center, which is a wonderful place, lots of great clinicians. It's a community mental health center. And I'm going to do a demonstration on what I call picture gazing, and I'm going to be doing it with something called brain change cards, and you'll see how it works. I like to start right off with the demonstration. Afterwards, we'll be discussing what happened during the demonstration. Please take notes if you have any questions, because you all are now deputized as my supervisors, so you can tell me what I did well and what you think I could have done better. So this is Eric, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to sit down, and so tell me a little bit, Eric, about what you're wanting to work on.
Well, we could probably, I'm not really good with large crowds of people.
Oh, okay, good.
I definitely want a rather extreme end of introversion. I tend to kind of keep to myself.
So you're on the extreme end of introversion, you keep to yourself, and so is what you're wanting to work on is being in front of a crowd.
Yeah, maybe being a little bit more open in social settings and less closed off.
You'd like to be more open in social settings. Okay, great. I'm repeating you because I'm not sure how well the mic is picking you up. Okay, so yeah.
You can talk louder.
You can get closer. Okay. So, what kinds of thoughts go through your mind when you're in front of in a social setting or?
First thing I usually think is, dear God, that's a lot of people.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to say part of you is saying, dear God, this is a lot of people for you to have to deal with. So what bad things can happen with a lot of people?
Yeah, usually probably are most like concerned with is like like not necessarily conflict. You can tend to not talk. But I'm usually paying attention to a lot of what's going on in the room too. So sometimes I'm taking in way more detail than I need to, and that's also partially overwhelming as well. And thinking, well, is this person going to get along with this person?
So it's like, what's going to happen? What could happen?
Yeah.
Okay. So using the brain change cards, I'm going to pick some cards in a particular category. And do any of these cards, let me make sure I have, should be 8 cards, yeah. Do any of these pictures represent the concern of like, what's going to happen? Could something bad come up? You're kind of going back and forth between two.
Yeah.
And this might be a surprise. I don't know if you expected to see pictures.
Okay.
This is it doesn't seem EMDR. You'll see how it is.
Well, for surprises.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one kind of represents how I feel in a lot of social situations.
Excellent. So he picked the screen, and
I'm also familiar with that picture too.
And you what now?
I was familiar with the
Familiar. Sometimes if it's familiar. So we're going to place it a little bit further away. So say a little bit more how that represents how you feel in those kind of situations.
The best visual I can think of is the scene in Home Alone. Macaulay Culkin puts the aftershave on his face and he screams.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. So it's like being by yourself, being alone, or?
No, well, it's a little bit, it's not like, putting aftershave on your face isn't horrifically painful.
Uh-huh.
Being around large numbers of people isn't crippling, but at the same time it's like, oh, this stings a bit and it can be mildly overwhelming.
So it's mildly overwhelming. So as you look at this picture, do you notice any sensations in your body that go with the overwhelming?
Not presently.
Okay, so sometimes people feel sort of overwhelmed or fearful in their chest, or
I know in situations like that, it's almost like I feel like a tension in the middle of my forehead. Because I start kind of including my face, and then I'll feel like that odd breathy sensation in my chest.
Can you think of a situation that was really difficult for you? Oh, okay, good. And what's it like when you remember that situation?
I can feel my eyes dilating with a modicum of discomfort.
Okay. That's tremendous awareness.
Try. And I'm usually aware of what's going on with myself and stuff like that. So I'm aware of it when it happens, but think about that particular situation, it's like,
Are you okay with sharing details of that?
oh yeah, it wasn't perfect. I'm a irony. I'm also a small group leader with my church. So what they decided to do was have all the people that were leading groups stand in this kind of common area, and everyone was sort of just dismissed into the area. So it's almost like having a parade or flood of people move in my direction to potentially ask me questions, which in of itself isn't a problem, but it's just seeing like, oh wow, that's a lot of people.
A bunch of people coming toward you, and as you remember that now, are you aware of some sensations?
The tension in the middle of my forehead and that same kind of,
Okay, kind of a pulling back.
yeah, and a little tension in my shoulders.
Yeah, excellent. So scale of 0 to 10 that you all know from EMDR, sense level, how strong is it?
Like a 7.
A 7, excellent, good. I'm all for activation, okay. In brain spotting, it's called activation. So we're going to take a little break now, and looking through these pictures, just pick ones that you like for any old reason. Now there's 24 positive pictures in this brain change card set, and you always want, it's fine for people to look, that's awesome, You always want people to take their time looking through the positive pictures. We'll talk afterwards why the negative pictures, you don't want to be focusing on them too much. As he's looking through positive pictures, I'll just start telling some of what's happening. There's neuroscience research that shows that when you look at pictures that are positive, it activates your left frontal lobe, which is actually the positive side of your brain.
These are the ones that I like.
Okay, excellent. Oh, these, and these
No,
are...
those ones I like. Those were the ones I was saying.
Yeah, okay. So, and you've got about 5. Can you narrow it down to 3 or 4? Oh, good. That one too. And remember, while he's looking, this is activating his right frontal lobe. I mean, his left frontal lobe.
I get 3 or 4.
4, you could have 4. Okay, great. Okay, I'll keep this one just in case we need it. So, what do you like about this one? It's a picture of a sailboat with a starry night.
I like the stars.
Uh-huh.
I think they look cool, and I've always had a fascination with outer space. And I also like the contrast between the dark in the mountains and the dark at the bottom of the sky.
Okay, so there's a contrast, but you like the star, you've been fascinated with them, and a fascination for outer space. So that's being fascinated is kind of neat. It sort of focuses your attention.
I'm driven a lot by my own curiosity. And being bored is kind of terrible, so I tend to look for things that are really intricate and fun, which is why I decided to become a health professional.
Oh, okay. So, so I would say then that you have a resource for curiosity, fascination, being intrigued. So excellent. Okay, and so what we're doing is getting resources now. What do you like about this picture?
He looks like he's about to do something really interesting.
Okay, and this is a guy on a flying carpet, and he's not Persian or anything like that. He's actually from Norway, I think. So who knew? So he looks like he's about to do something interesting.
guy on the carpet with a lantern, that's usually a pretty good signal for some kind of adventure.
For adventure, so I'd say you have a resource for adventure and going places, okay? And I'm so glad you picked this one. What did you like about this one?
I like how I'm not really a visual artist, so I don't know how to describe it in technical terms, but I like how the focus point of the picture is the sun and how the colors swirl towards it, so it draws your eyes from the trees in almost like a drain-like pattern towards the middle.
Okay, so it's the artistic quality of going towards the middle. Does it give you any kind of feeling as you look at it?
Wonderment.
Wonderment. Again, another resource for wonderment. Now, I always feel silly asking this question, but by the way, so this is a picture of two trees with a sun in the background, and you'll all have a chance to look at this. And what do you like about this picture?
Well, that one I picked for emotional reasons. I've been a Christian since I was 12. So
Right, oh, and this is a picture of Jesus, so I feel silly asking what do you like about this picture. So, but everybody comes up with something different. So you've always been a Christian,
and especially when I became a Christian in the first place, I didn't take it like there was no cultural component for me. It was like I didn't know squat, and I went from, oh, this is the way life works. So I look at Jesus as a figure that brings a lot of meaning into my own life.
Oh, so he brings meaning and gives you a sense of purpose, maybe? So this would be a resource for having a sense of purpose and meaning. So of these resources, which do you think would help with that fear when you're in a crowd and overwhelmed?
Touche.
Touche. I don't know what that was.
Well, it's interesting how I wasn't thinking about that card
No,
until
no.
one
And I bet right now you're not feeling much in your body
No.
either. No, that's what these cards do.
Got to pick one.
No, you can pick more than one.
The first two that jumped out was the starry sky and the guy on the carpet. The sky thing, people are interesting to me, even though I'm not really in large groups of people. I kind of have this way of explaining it with, I work a lot with children and their families, and I find it interesting that with a child, they have this entire macrocosm of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that go into why they do what they do, and their parents, who, for all intents and purposes, they birth them and take care of them, they're completely separate, said the same thing. So keeping that in mind, a person usually isn't too bad. Just when I see like 50 of them, it's like, oh, there's 50 universes walking towards me at the same time.
Right.
But then the adventure bit is also really cool because something you can explore all that.
Oh, so it's the idea of 50 people walking towards you. It's an opportunity for exploration. Okay. All right, we'll keep these handy in case we need them. So your body is pretty calm and relaxed right now, right? Okay. So let's cover these up for a minute. And so holding this one, I'm going to have you hold it later, remembering all those people coming towards you at the church and what's going to happen and that kind of thing. Nope, I didn't get it right today.
Oh yeah, they were all, it's like a bunch of people walking towards me.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really seem so bad now.
Okay, is there any suds level, any activation in your body?
Not particularly. Just, I look back at it as, oh well, this is a bunch of people that I could, for lack of a better way of putting it, explore and get to understand better.
So maybe this card already did it for you.
That's a really cool card.
It's a really cool card. Okay, so thinking about that situation, looking at this card, and by the way, a negative image can activate the amygdala in milliseconds. So can you think of any other situations that were difficult? Okay, what came to your mind?
A situation that I'm probably actually going to have to deal with later this week.
Oh, that's good, a future anticipation, okay.
I have, in the group I lead, I have one friend who's newish, and he made a series of foolish errors, which that's long since been forgiven and the situation's been resolved, but I think some people are still holding it against him. And since they're all coming to my group, I don't like the fact that's potentially going to cause some division. Initially I thought that the whole issue was dead, but recently over the weekend I had two people griping about it. I don't like him because of blah, blah, blah. Oh, God, really?
Yeah, and just thinking about that, what do you notice in that?
Exasperation and a slight tension in my jaw, because I'm probably going to have to talk to these people soon.
Okay, so the exasperation is mainly in your jaw, which is excellent, but you don't notice anywhere else?
Well, yeah, just my jaw.
Just your jaw. Okay, so and how strong is it, 0 to 10?
About
A 5. A 5 is good, right, guys? Okay. So we're going to put him down, and you can hold on to these parts. And all I want you to do is focus on the sensations in your body and look at the picture. So this is mindfulness of the body. And attention takes away tension. If you have any thoughts you want to share with me, any thoughts pop in, any change in body sensation that you can share?
Well, staring at the card and being mindful of my jaw, and kind of pair the two. It's like, well, you kind of force the option. You can either be tense about it, or you can choose not to be and think more solution-oriented.
Okay, so you just had the thought you can choose to be upset about this or be solution-oriented. What do you notice in your body when you have that thought?
My jaw didn't feel as tense, and I kind of thought that was to do with the fact that, well, now that I'm aware that I have a choice, there's no real reason to be tense about it because I can do something about it as opposed to just being irritated.
Okay, so you have a great thought. We would call it a positive cognition, an EMDR, that I have choices and I'll know what to do. What happens when you have a thought? I'll know what to do when the time comes.
I kind of just left it there. It's like, well,
Is there any activation in your body? Any tension, pressure, heaviness, anything anywhere when you have the thought, I'll know what to do when the time comes?
not really, no. My jaw doesn't feel as tense when I think about the situation.
Okay, all right, so it's not as tense, so 0 to 10. What's it at now?
A 1.
A 1. So just look at your guy and notice that little bit, zero in on it. And you might, yeah, what just happened?
Resisting the urge to laugh.
Isn't that a wonderful urge? I have an urge to show everybody what parasympathetic nerve he just activated. So this is your brain, and when you laugh, you're activating the intermediate facial nerve, which is right here, as shown on the screen. And what do you notice in your jaw now after you laugh?
I'll try not to laugh still.
Oh, yes, don't laugh. Oh, good man. So laughter, is a form of discharge?
I do now.
Yeah, okay, fear, actually. So that's my old training way before EMDR.
Well, now I learned anything great.
And so how is your jaw now?
It's normal. Like, I don't feel tense at all.
Okay.
Kind of hard to be tense about it since I'm laughing.
When you're laughing. Okay, so looking here, I'm sorry, where did it go? So thinking about the conflicts that could happen when you look at the frightened part of you.
Still don't laugh.
You still want to laugh?
Yeah, it doesn't really seem that bad, really, and even thinking about it more further, these are usually very reasonable people, so I don't expect this to turn into really anything that serious or bad.
Okay, so you just had another positive thought. They're reasonable. It's not going to be that bad. And why don't you ask him, because I'm going to demonstrate dialogue, which is part of my thing. Do you ask this part of you silently? Do you trust that Eric will know how to handle it? And just see if you get an answer back.
It's almost like saying it into an empty hallway.
Oh, beautiful explanation. So you're not hearing anything back. And what's that like when you don't hear anything? Is it comfortable or is it just...
It's definitely, I'd say, comfortable. And it's not uncomfortable, I think would be a good way to describe it.
Okay.
It doesn't disquiet me at all.
Okay, so asking a part of you questions is an excellent way to stump it. And sometimes with my clients, most of them say, I'm so relieved it stopped talking. Especially with inner critics that have ongoing monologues. But some of them say, well, I want an answer. And the idea is question stump these negative parts of us. So that's another interesting thing to learn. That adventurous part of you is really, I can see it clearly. So looking at this guy now, and you're saying you haven't thought it won't be that bad, and you're telling him you can trust Eric to be able to handle whatever happens. And that feels comfortable to you.
It does.
Okay, so do you all think we're done? Would you have me go anywhere else? No, okay. Before Eric's off the hook, oh wait, one more thing we're going to do. Arrange these cards the way you would like them to be in your mind. That's a good one, okay.
Like in a linear fashion, on a stack.
You're making a collage. It's to suggest, like, do you want this one to be in charge of you, or who do you want to be in charge?
Prefer my faith to be more in charge of both my life than definitely that. And my sense of adventure has to kind of follow suit. I see these three as being parallel ideas.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And this one can just sort of chill out by itself.
Okay, so since we're going to take a picture on the cell phone, I'm just going to put them a little bit closer.
Oh.
Now, what you did was interesting because a lot of times people want to turn the negative picture over and it's not allowed. So, but by moving them further away, you're sort of doing the same thing. Okay, this is good. Is this okay like this? And I didn't ask you to have your, do you have your cell phone handy?
Yes.
I'm going to take a picture too. And then you'll see why we're going to take pictures.
Oh, we'll take pictures.
Yeah, I'll do it because I need to know what you picked. Then actually we can pass around those colors. Okay, did you go, and you're at your gallery, great. So, clients love taking pictures of the cards, and let's see. So when you're feeling afraid, you can zoom in on him, and you can see much more detail. You can even zoom in on the part that gets you most afraid. Now, you all ask me more about this later, but the stronger you feel an emotion, the more vulnerable it comes to change. And then you just go over here to the adventurous guy, and you can blow him up and see what looks best. You can go, that focal point of the sun, a lot of people just love looking at it, and you can see the stars more clearly. And of course, when things are really rough, you can focus on the religious picture, spiritual picture. Okay? You're done, my friend. But they may have some questions for you on what this was like for you before anybody asks me. Oh, and here, I'll pass around my phone and let me see. So, does anybody have questions for Eric? My time's up. Maybe they will later. Just, if you don't ask me questions, I'll ask you questions. So anybody have some questions for me?
When you use this, do you do a suds at the end to see where that's come down? Do you add that protocol in like you would EMDR?
I thought I did that, but maybe I didn't. So the question is, do I do a suds level at the end of the protocol? And I think you saw me doing during it when he was looking at all the positive cards. I asked if there was any activation. I think I did it at the end when you were looking at the venture guy, and
Yes.
did I ask you if you were noticing anything in your body?
Yeah, you asked about, and I just moved my jaw.
Felt better. Right, and then he was laughing, so then it felt more normal too. So, back to normal. Excellent question. Any other, yes?
Can you repeat that answer, please?
That I asked at the end, when Eric started laughing, and he stopped laughing, and I went into my little explanation that that's a discharge of fear, and then I asked him if he was noticing anything, and you said, no, it felt normal. Okay? Any other questions?
I do, about the process.
Yes, good.
Do the cards come in a preset selection of pictures?
Yes, so I used to use a combination of tarot cards, Osho cards, and something called the interactive cards, and I meant to bring that with me too, but a lot of, I do these seminars for Pesci, and a lot of people were saying, why don't you just make some cards? So I made these, so it comes in this set like this. I forgot to bring my set, but I have the tabs labeled, and it has,
So when he gives you his, whatever his issue was, do you select a set of cards based on his issue, or do you always get the same positive cards?
oh, okay, so, excellent question. So first of all, I'm focusing on what is the issue, and I'm listening for negative cognitions or negative automatic thoughts, just like you would in EMDR. I didn't go quite as far as EMDR, because in EMDR, when you said I feel overwhelmed, I probably would have said, what does that mean about you? And I actually might have gotten to a deeper level of activation. But I'll take any old negative thought. So I'm just listening, okay, what category does this sound like? It sounds like fear. So I have a category of cards that are fearful, and there is only 8 cards in the fear category. Where do they go? Oh, I put them in backwards. So there's 8 cards in there. And Eric, can you comment, what was that like for you, looking through the fear cards? I think there was another one you sort of were considering.
It was that one.
This one, which is quite similar to the screen. So all these pictures come from the public domain, and this was painted in 1794 by William Blake. Who knew? I thought he was a poet. His artwork is fantastic.
Oh, how are you doing?
Yeah. So, and then the important thing is, I'm so glad you're asking this, is when they pick a card, then you want to say, well, tell me a little more how this represents your fear. And you will get the most poetic, poignant words. You started talking about Home Alone, and so then I said, oh, is it a feeling of being alone? And no, and then you elaborated on that. But you may get a lot more clarity on that when you get the negative card. There's other categories in here. The thing you hear with your clients most often, what do you guys think? What do you hear most often with clients when they're upset? Anybody want to make a stab?
swear words.
Say it again?
Swear words.
Swear words, okay. So if they're having swear words, then what category would I go for? And I know you don't.
Anger.
Anger, right. So I've got 8 angry pictures. And so how do these represent your anger? This one's interesting. So the other nice thing, by the way, all of the Rider-Waite Tarot cards are in the public domain. So I use those. One client said he can feel his wall coming up. And when he thinks about his wife, had an affair, and sometimes his wall will come up. So he looked through the SAG cards and none of them fit. And then I thought, maybe he's afraid she's doing something. He looked through the fear cards, none of them fit. And he picked this card of the Tower, and he said his wall comes up when it feels like everything's coming apart. Okay? Any other guesses on what you hear a lot from your clients? What do you commonly hear from your clients? Where the angry guys go?
Okay, what they hear when they are,
When
what
they're
do they say
upset.
when they're angry?
Yeah, do you get clients saying, I can't do anything right, I'm so incompetent, I don't know what I'm doing? What do you call that part of people?
Inner criticism.
Inner criticism. So my first category that I've got, and you can distinguish all these cards, oh no, those are sad ones, by the border on the back. And it's kind of interesting to look at the cards on the back. Sometimes I use the back of the card. Do you ever use the back of the card, Sharon?
Yes.
Yeah, it comes up. So it looks much more ominous with the black border than the peach border. So that's an inner critic, and it comes up a lot. That's the one they always want to turn over. So, and the most popular inner critic for my clients is this guy. I don't know if you can see him, but you're welcome to look through these. Is he pretty popular with your guys?
Yes, I'm trying to think of another one, the thumb down.
The thumb down?
Yeah. the thumb
Okay,
down.
and so this one is what she's talking
Yeah,
about?
there's a little man under the thumb.
Now, suppose the client picks this one. What would you think about their inner critic? I don't know if you all can see it. I know the people up front. Ooh, okay. That's the right reaction. Okay. Does that look pretty heavy duty to you? Very judgy, very judgy. That's actually another William Blake painting of God judging Adam. So, yeah, Adam, that's right. I'm right on that, right?
I'm not sure.
It's God judging somebody. It's very biblical.
Very.
So he's a big, heavy-duty inner critic. Okay, any other questions on the process?
I do.
Yes.
Is bilateral stimulation occurring as the client is looking at the pictures, or?
That is a wonderful question. Okay, so now I know Eric didn't get too upset here, but we could have done, this is Robin Shapiro, has a two-handed interweave that she calls, and she might just have somebody go back and forth like this between, so that's total EMDR. But Sharon and I have been trained in brain spotting. So when, and I put this at a little greater distance, when you're looking at a spot or a negative picture, you actually get what's called microsaccades, and your eyes do move back and forth. So even though you're just staring at something, and Franz, you can help me with this, Donna, but in Francine's first 2 books, she talked about sometimes just staring at something. Do you remember that?
And if you notice, when he was looking through the cards, you know how I talk about, really being tuned to the person. Did you notice his eyes were shifting back and forth? He was doing it to himself. I don't know if he even noticed that he was doing it, but his eyes were doing the bilateral as he was thinking about the negative image and using that left side of the brain for creativity of the positive of choosing it. So both those sides of his brain were being stimulated already, and the eyes just naturally followed. Did you
And-
notice that? Did anyone else
I
notice
did.
that?
Well, Don, I think I did comment on that. I think I said, oh, I see you're looking back
Right.
and forth.
Mhm.
And
So it's happening in the brain, and the eyes are just following along. So that's, you'll see that when, when you're working with brain work. It's very interesting to watch.
Right, and in all good therapy, the most important thing is being attuned to your client. So I was watching the eyes moving back and forth. But you're also bringing, who asked the question again? You did. Okay, so you're bringing up another thing. What is the difference in the neuroscience between EMDR and this picture gazing or brain spotting? Is that part of what your question is?
Well, I guess I was going based on my observation when he selected the negative cards and going back and forth. I
And
think
you
that's
saw
what-
it
Yeah.
yourself. See, you're very sharp. Okay.
Sitting close.
But does anybody want to know, is there a difference in the neuroscience with EMDR and brain spotting? So maybe Donna can coattail on some of this. My own belief is what I know absolute solidly for a fact that's working in EMDR is you have 4 parasympathetic nerves. Those are the rest and restore nerves in your brainstem. And when you move your eyes back and forth, you're activating this ocular motor nerve. It's the 3rd cranial nerve. I sound really brainy. I'm not that smart person, but I've worked very hard. So you are activating a parasympathetic nerve, and when you do that, you will have a compelled relaxation response. So now I know a lot of EMDR people don't like to do eye movements with their clients. I will tell you, I was not a tapper. I was pretty big into eye movements. But we didn't move this around to find your spot because I'm going for a little bit
Right.
different neuroscience.
Right.
But in EMDR, is there anything about the bilateral stimulation that they've come up with? Because there's sort of a mystery. I mean, what I always heard her say was, we don't know how aspirin works, and we're not quite sure how the bilateral stimulation works. Do you have any thoughts, other thoughts on
Well,
this one?
it's replicating that REM, like what we have in
The
REM
REM
sleep.
thing, yes.
So it's a
Okay.
natural body process, and that's our natural way of calming ourselves. That's how we're made, that's how our bodies are made, and you're replicating that process when you're doing EMDR and stimulating the...
So replicating the REM eye movements. Okay, there's definitely a different neuroscience to this. But it really doesn't matter because this is about memory reconsolidation. So in what I'm doing, and kind of like with brain spotting, is I want to activate the optic nerve. So when you activate somebody's optic nerve, the optic nerve ends up right here in an area. It's not drawn on this brain model. It's kind of an esoteric part of the brain. It's called the pulvinar, and it's right underneath the thalamus. And that's what causes the tiny little microsaccades. And then the optic nerve also activates a little area of here called the superior colliculi. People who've been brainwashed in brain spotting know about the superior colliculi that has access to autobiographical memories. So I know exactly where I'm going in the brain. I'm getting into this very deep brain stem area. But the most important thing is, so you have 2 hemispheres, and so when you are looking at something you perceive as negative, the most recent research I read is that your amygdala, which is right here in the limbic area, will activate in milliseconds. And that's where you get all these sensations, that you felt something here and in your jaw, and that sort of thing. Then, when you're looking at positive pictures, the left hemisphere over here, this is my left anyway, when you activate that, it takes a little longer. So if you come to the seminar that I'm going to do, we'll do an exercise to teach you how to really activate the left hemisphere. When you activate it, it actually shuts down the amygdala, it downregulates it, and it activates the nucleus accumbens that releases, do you all know what the nucleus, the reward center, do you know what neurotransmitter it releases? Anybody here? It activates dopamine. Do you all know what dopamine, what street drug that's like? Cocaine. So we have endogenous cocaine, endogenous opiates, and they're actually much more powerful than street drugs, but they're titrated. We even have endogenous cannabinoids, but I don't really know how to get to them. So when looking at that positive picture, you are shutting down the amygdala, and you're activating the reward center, and you're getting all these positive neurochemicals. You're getting dopamine, you're getting, when he's smiling, he's getting endorphins. Because we're in attunement, we're getting oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone that shuts off the stress reaction. So, and this is what memory reconsolidation is all about. And I don't know if they're talking much about that in EMDR. So this is, to me, what makes all therapy work, whether it's EMDR, whether it's what I'm doing, or brain spotting. You bring up the negative emotion, and you get adrenaline, you might even get some cortisol, and then you're pairing it with neurotransmitters that are kind of going to melt that. It's going to bleach it out. So when you pull up a memory from your cortex and you actually pull it up in the hippocampus, which is like a Word document. So let's say you're going in your hard drive and you're getting some document, you pull it up in the Word document where you can make changes in it. And you're bringing in these positive neurotransmitters. And then the memory changes, and now he can go back and think about when he was in church and all those people were converging on him, and it's just a fact. So people often say, oh, I wish I just didn't have that memory. Well, the memory can be, and often, do you ever hear your clients say, even doing EMDR, what's it like when you think of the incident now? And they say, well, it just happened. It becomes a fact of life. So I'm being mindful of the time, and I know you guys need to see clients. Is there any last minute question?
The cards are the best and easiest and most amazing resource I have and I use at this point, and I've been doing this a long time. And I have found other ways to use them, even to shut down a session with a group of people and to hand out cards to somebody and say, even at the end of a session, if I haven't used the cards, just to say, look through the resource, find something, and they're able to transition and shift very rapidly. So there are many, many uses for these.
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that, because when people are, Eric wasn't that activated, but I've had people just with horrible levels of activation, and in EMDR, Sharon and I were trained with 4 people. 2 of them never even did EMDR because they were so afraid to use it. But these positive pictures ground people like that.
Really?
It's amazing. You wouldn't believe it. And they're also wonderful with children and with mentally challenged people. I have somebody with like a 60 IQ who just loved using them.
I have a group of widowers that I lead at church once a month, and they do a lot. There's a lot of grief that comes up. That's the purpose of the group. And last time I didn't have time to sort of bring them down and ground them, and so I just said, pick a card. The backside, they didn't even know what they said. Just take one, and they all picked one. And I said, okay, so look at the card for a few minutes, and tell me what resource or how this might help you. I was amazed.
Mm-hmm.
I was amazed at what they were even choosing the cards blindly, how it helped them. So
Yeah, I had a little girl who
the
was
positive cards.
still grieving the loss of her grandmother, and this was her favorite card. And I said, what do you like about it? And you get completely different things from different people. And she said, oh, I love the stars. What do you like about the stars? They're constant. They're always there. She had lost her grandmother 3 years ago, but yet she had a resource for something that was always there. And I saw her for second session, and she said she's feeling fine with her grandmother. It's her mother. So now we'll be doing family therapy. Okay, I know you all have to go, and again, thank you so much.
Thank you.